Here's what's coming up on your horizon. Well, when the Farm Bill went down in defeat in Congress last month, many of the objections had very little to do with the farm. This week, we talk with the Farm Bill's House author, Oklahoma Congressman Frank Lucas, about the surprising controversy over America's food policy. Stay with us for Oklahoma Horizon.
Oklahoma Horizon is made possible by the Oklahoma Department of Career and Technology Education.
Oklahoma's investment in Career Tech provides more than nationally recognized technology education and training. It produces solid financial returns for the state's economic future. Oklahoma Career Tech, elevating our economy.
And the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping good people grow good things. And now, from the Career Tech Studios in Stillwater, here's your host, Rob McClendon.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on Horizon. Well, started during the height of the 1930s Depression, America's Farm Bill has guided our country's food policy for decades. Now written to be renewed every 5 years, it's a piece of legislation that, while always debated, is never terribly controversial, in part because of the broad support it gets from rural conservatives, urban liberals, and those that benefit from its welfare provisions, whether it be corporate help to agribusiness or food stamps for the working poor. Yet this summer, when the Farm Bill came up for a procedural vote in the House of Representatives, it failed, and not by a small margin. Here's our Andy Barth.
Well, when the Republican-led House defeated the 5-year, $500 billion Farm Bill on a vote of 234 to 195, it left our nation's food policy in limbo.
Assess the situation. Look at the bill. Vote with me to move this forward. If you care about the consumers, the producers, the citizens of this country, move this bill forward.
Despite the best pleading of its author, the Farm Bill failed to get off the House floor, in great part due to not what was in the Farm Bill, but what wasn't.
The yeas are 195, the nays are 234. The bill is not passed.
Democrats voted overwhelmingly against the bill because it cut an estimated $2 billion annually from nutrition programs like SNAP or food stamps. But even so, the bill would still have passed if it were not for 62 Republicans who voted against the wishes of their own leadership. A forewarning of what may become a new reality: farm state lawmakers losing their grip on U.S. farm policy.
If it fails today, I can't guarantee that you'll see in this session of Congress another attempt.
It has something for everyone. And it's important to say that in order to be able to encourage urban and suburban legislators to understand that this is a bill that impacts their constituents just as much as it impacts somebody on a farm or ranch.
As U.S. Agricultural Secretary Tom Vilsack knows, that while called a farm bill, in actuality the legislation is more of a food bill. 80% of the dollars spent under the Farm Bill goes toward nutrition programs like SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, food stamps. That's 2% of the federal budget, serving about 46 million people, roughly 1 in 7 Americans. But who is on food assistance may surprise you. About 41% of SNAP recipients live with a person who has a job, and more than half, nearly 55%, are either under 18 or over 60. Essentially, the working poor and their dependents. And it was cuts here that ultimately doomed legislation and dimmed the hopes of a farm bill passing anytime soon.
No matter what part of the country, no matter whether they produce the food or consume the food, we have to meet those common needs in a responsible fashion.
Now, many of the Republicans who voted against the measure say they did so because it just costs too much, while Democrats say the $40 billion in cuts in nutrition programs went too far.
And late last week, the House voted by just 8 votes to pass the agricultural provisions of the Farm Bill without the nutrition portions included. A short-term solution that some believe could cause some long-term problems. That's because farm state lawmakers have used such feeding programs as a way to connect to more of their urban counterparts in Congress, so they in turn would support farm subsidies for their constituents. A little later, an interesting conversation I had with Farm Bill author and Oklahoma Congressman Frank Lucas. But first, when we return, some insights on why this piece of legislation matters to those who make their living on the land.
You're watching Oklahoma Horizon, featuring some of the good things that are happening in the great state of Oklahoma.
Well, this year's wheat crop has proven to be a Jekyll and Hyde of a harvest. Some areas are good, while others are just horrible. And it's in those hardest hit areas, still suffering from drought, that the crop insurance provisions of the Farm Bill will prove invaluable. OSU's Austin Moore headed out west to get a first-hand look.
The spring rains have much of the state back to normal or near normal rainfall for the calendar year. But in the western part of the state, we're very much still in a drought. Here in Ellis County, we're 6 to 8 inches behind for the water year. Now that's left wheat harvest looking very different than it looks in central Oklahoma.
I hope to make 5. I got to keep this for seed. There's about 80 acres here. If I make 5, I got 400 bushel. That'll fill this truck.
Curtis Torrance has been at this a long time.
I'm 64 years old, grew up on a farm, and I've not seen a year quite like this one. The extremes we've had. We had good rain there in September, which let us get our wheat in. Then we went all winter with almost 0 amount of moisture.
Follow that with 3 freeze events in 3 weeks, and you're left with wheat that is barely ankle high and yields that are far below average.
Stark County average is somewhere around 25 or 26 bushels to the acre. And you know, we're looking at a lot of 10 and under this year. Our annual rainfall's somewhere between 20-26 inches in the county, depending on what spots you're standing in. And last year we had about 9 inches total, you know, so it's pretty hard to grow anything on 9 inches of moisture.
That lack of rain is drying up more in this community than just the crops.
On a normal year, by 3 o'clock, there's a line of trucks. You have to wait to get dumped. Normal year, it takes 4 people to even come close to keeping up. This year, we're getting 10 trucks a day. 2 people can handle the deal. Better than half of the acres getting cuts, going right to a seed bin, trying to get enough wheat to sow back next year so we can play one more year.
Over the years, Todd Atha has seen this land demand a lot from its keepers, and he doesn't believe this round of hardship is over just yet.
The wheat farmer in this country also runs cattle. We're running about 1/3 the cow herd that we've ever run. Ain't got too many cows. I mean, it's still tough. It's still a drought. We're not out of it yet. From Sealing East, maybe out of it. We're not out of it yet.
How do they keep going with years like that?
Oh, I guess it's just kind of in their blood. You learn to take the bad with the good, and you hope for a good year, you know, the next year, because you sure try to remember them good years and forget the bad ones.
I'm more of an optimist of what I think the wheat can do than a lot of people around me. The wheat I hauled to the elevator this morning after all this rain made 11 and weighed 59. So I mean, I am really pleased with the test weight overall of what's happened.
That attitude gives Curtis Torrance and farmers like him the endurance they will need to put seed in the ground this fall, despite the challenges they know will come.
When we return, a little inside politics with Congressman Frank Lucas. You can keep up with us throughout the week. Just head to okhorizon.com, where you can see more of any of our stories, read our reporters' behind-the-scenes blogs, see what others are saying about us on Twitter, and face the facts with our regular updates. So reach out and touch us anywhere and anytime. Well, few better understand the intricacies and the importance of the Farm Bill than 3rd District Congressman Frank Lucas. Lucas serves as the chairman of the House Agricultural Committee and the principal author of the legislation designed to guide U.S. food policy. Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for being here. Well, I've heard it said more than a few times that a good piece of legislation is one that doesn't make anyone happy, and this past farm bill in the House didn't seem to make enough people happy. It failed. What happened?
Well, Rob, if that's the definition, then I must have an almost perfect piece of legislation. We took a bill to the floor not many days ago that would have cut mandatory spending, not discretionary, but the mandatory spending, the real problem with the national budget, by $40 billion. And we did that in the bill by reforming and reducing spending in all areas of the Farm Bill. We did away with the direct payment program in the commodity title. We reduced the CRP authorization in the conservation title. Those kind of things saved about $20 billion. Over on the nutrition side, we reformed the food stamp program in a way that will not take 1 calorie out of the mouth of one deserving person. They'll just have to prove they qualify. But between LIHEAP and categorical eligibility, we save about $20 billion more dollars. So yes, everybody helped, and apparently that inflamed everybody simultaneously.
I want you to give us a little bit of a civic lesson. You mentioned mandatory versus discretionary spending. Tell us the difference.
Discretionary spending is the kind of spending that Congress has engaged in since 1789, where you appropriate money for 1 year at a time. You don't obligate future Congresses, and think of everything from the Department of Defense on down in that regard. Mandatory spending, Rob, is something that has evolved since the 1930s, where you put programs in place, and if a person qualifies for the program, they receive the benefit whether it's been appropriated or not. They automatically get it. Food stamps falls in that category. There's a certain amount of the commodity title spending in the Farm Bill that falls in that category, but it's automatic spending. And we've done a pretty good job in the last 5 years of turning down discretionary spending. But the thing that's really tearing up the federal budget is the mandatory, the automatic spending. That's why this Farm Bill was so important to me personally. Not only good farm policy, not only good social nutrition policy, but $40 billion in mandatory spending reductions over the next 5 years. No other committees match that, and I hope my friends in the House, maybe in a second try, will understand that.
So you weren't rewarded for that $40 billion in cut. Could it be that maybe it was too deep for some and too much for others?
That's a good way to describe it, Rob. When push came to shove, we did 100+ amendments on the floor of the United States House, a very open process. I would tell you that there were changes made in the commodity title. The supply management part of the dairy program was stripped on the floor. But by and large, the commodity title, the things that raised the food, stayed in place. The real controversy was over on the social nutrition side, food stamps. You remember I mentioned we ended automatic food stamps. Categorical eligibility would stop under the bill. And that's a loophole in federal law where 40-some states say if you qualify for some other federal welfare benefit, we'll automatically give you food stamps without applying.
And that could be a very small benefit, correct?
Yes, that's $12 billion a year. The other thing that we changed dramatically, something called LIHEAP. A lot of folks call it heat and eat. Northern states will send, in some cases, as small as $1 to their citizens to help pay for their home heating cost. Probably between a cup and a pint of home heating oil for the month. But that triggers a full month's worth of automatic food stamps. We say in the bill, no states, if you're going to help your citizens, put $20 in the game. CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, scores that at $8 billion. So $12 billion saved by ending automatic food stamps, $8 billion saved by making states play fair in LIHEAP. But on the floor, and by the way, in the committee mark of the bill, we would end USDA advertising food stamps, hiring recruiters to advertise food stamps. We would end the USDA's ability to engage foreign governments in advertising food stamps outside the country. Big time reforms, Rob. But on the floor, there were amendments added to strengthen the state's ability to require drug testing for SNAP. That drove some of my liberal colleagues crazy. There was language to prohibit a lifetime prohibition on federal felons of ever using food stamps. And you can debate the moral issues there, but it was adopted. But the one that finally, I think, broke the camel's back, that final straw, that last brick on the pack mule, was the language adopted by the House to require a work requirement. Able-bodied people would have to make an effort to work every month to qualify for their food stamps. The liberals couldn't take that much reform. And ironically, 62 of my Republican colleagues who voted for all the reforms wouldn't vote for the final draft of the bill. So if I'm a little unhappy with my friends, Rob, I'm unhappy with my friends on both sides of the room because we have to have this reform. we have to have this reform. And if you're going to vote for reforms, I really think you need to follow them all the way to fruition, Rob. But maybe I'm still carrying a few scars from the battle on the floor.
Well, the Farm Bill certainly become a food bill. And, you know, when you talk about the nutrition programs, I know there's been a dramatic growth. What is it, 18 to 46 million? But on the flip side of that, most of the people on these feeding programs, are they not the working poor?
Exactly, Rob. 80% of the Farm Bill now are the social nutrition programs, food stamps, school lunch, and WIC, although we leave WIC and school lunch alone. The other 20%, rural development, conservation, the commodity titles, farm credit, the things, ag research, the things that most people would define as raising the food. But in that final go, trying to achieve the balance between the two, I can say in good faith that the committee passed draft of the bill, while it would save $20 billion in food stamp expenditures, would not deny one qualified needy person from being helped. They just have to demonstrate their income and their asset levels, prove they qualify, and we'll help them. That didn't seem unreasonable, because when the bill left the committee, I had a majority of both Republicans and Democrats vote for it. I went to the floor with a bipartisan bill. And of course, the body worked its will, and the will wasn't quite what I was hoping for, but we're going to try again, Rob. You have to have a comprehensive farm policy. This bill has to be passed. If for no other reason than at the end of the year it begins to expire and the old 1949 law kicks in, and we don't want allotments and quotas, the complications of parity pricing, production history issues. We can't go back to the 49 law.
But this was a bill that was supposed to pass last calendar year, was it not?
Yes. Once again, the committee passed a bipartisan bill out. My majority leadership said they didn't have the votes to pass it on the floor, and therefore floor time was never allocated to me. This year, we passed it by a slightly bigger bipartisan margin in the committee. I worked with my ranking member, Mr. Peterson. Even up until the night before the final vote, we had the votes, Rob. But on the day of the last 5 amendments, when the final reform package was put together on SNAP, my liberal friends said, whoa, that's too much, we can't go this far. Now, what the next bill will look like, there are some in leadership who are talking about splitting the bill in 2 parts, running a food stamp bill and then running an everything else bill. That's an interesting strategy. I think that would wind up having to be a party line vote. I don't see any Democrats who would really have any urge to vote that way. But I would also say, for those who think they can just do it that way, when we go to conference with the Senate, we have to balance our bills out. The Senate's not all that enthused about any reforms in food stamps. We reform $20.5 billion total. They reform $4.5 billion, Rob. What if they just refuse to conference the food stamp side? Do I make the changes in the commodity side and in the things that raise the food supply? Well, that's important, and we have a real farm bill. But I'll have lost my opportunity to make reforms in SNAP, in the food stamps, and that'd be kind of sad. And by the same token, if it's only a farm bill that comes out of conference committee, can I persuade enough inner city and urban members that it's important? Now, you and I both know that a farm bill helps make sure that consumers in this country and around the world have an affordable, safe, plentiful food supply. But part of my problem is so many of the folks I serve with in Congress are so far removed from the production of, the processing of, the distribution of the food supply.
So strategically, it would seem that decoupling those two could be bad long term.
I think it makes it harder. Now, what I've told my majority leadership is, whatever gets 218 votes, I'm in favor of. I've got to get to conference, because when we conference with the Senate, the final bill will come together, and it won't look exactly like either chamber's version. I've got to get the final bill put together, and I think ultimately a conference committee report would be adopted by both bodies, because in spite of the concern about the last few elements of reform in the food stamp program, my friends in the minority and most of my friends in the majority really didn't complain about ending automatic food stamps, didn't complain about the LIHEAP changes, that $20 billion. It was too logical, it was too straightforward. But there are groups that I work with back east, the political bounty hunters, so to speak, who I'm not sure they really want a farm bill. I don't know that they want us to accomplish things.
Is it divide and conquer? Is that what we're talking about?
I would just say that there's more money to be made by the political mercenaries back east in a state of confusion, chaos, a lack of anything happening, than it is for us to work in regular order, get our business done, and go home.
Okay.
That's sad, but it's the world we live in, Rob.
Now, this farm bill was rather historic in that we're going, or at least the plan was, to kind of do away with direct payments, something that's been with us since the 90s, which kind of took on a life of their own. They really weren't put there to be permanent, were they?
Exactly. The view originally in the 1996 Farm Bill was that the annual payments would be a transition payment as we would adjust as the world would become a more open and fair trading place. It ultimately became the safety net and a tool by which producers were able to address weather, address markets, address world competition, imbalances in trade. And from the perspective of international trade, the World Trade Organization, WTO, it's the most compliant part of the Farm Bill. It's the least trade distorting in the eyes of the ag economist. But there's no political support for it. The media and a number of my colleagues who maybe don't focus quite as much time as they should, not as much time as you do, as I do, make it impossible to sustain. So we have to move forward in a different direction. And that's why your safety net now, as envisioned by the House mark, won't be direct payments anymore. That's gone forever. It's using insurance where producers pay premiums, whether it's to address weather or the shallow loss crop revenue program that the Midwesterners want, or the price protection perspective we have in the rest of the country, but using insurance where producers pay a premium, where they only benefit if there's a dramatic weather or price change. In most years, nothing will be paid out, going to that kind of a system. But most folks are still focused on the old direct payment system, and it's not in any draft of the bill. As soon as we pass the new Farm Bill, that system is gone.
Is crop insurance more important to those of us that make our living off the land here in the middle of America and really places where the Southern Plains, where it's been very volatile? Are they more important to us than other parts of the country?
Historically, Rob, yes, crop insurance was more important to us where we have tough weather challenges. I mean, how can it be more challenging than living in the southern part of the plains on the east side of the Rockies? But if you talk to a farmer in Indiana or Illinois or virtually any other part of the country, they'll now look you in the eye and say, my banker used to only ask for my tax return. Now my banker has to have my insurance policy, my crop insurance policy, to go with my tax return. And it's not because he or she demanded it, it's because the bank examiners demand they have that in their file from me. So it's become an important financing tool. And if you just do away with crop insurance, as some of my colleagues would like to do back east, and you don't have the certainty of the direct payment anymore, we're going to make it very difficult, especially for smaller operators, younger operators, beginning operators, to secure the financing they need.
Who would oppose it? Is it just because that is partially taxpayer funded?
I serve in an idealistic time where I have outside groups that attack everything the federal government does. And they would tell you that the federal government shouldn't be a part of this. But the federal government's engaged in federal flood insurance. The federal government is providing a safety net for consumers called the food stamp program, just to pick and choose because farmers represent a smaller political group, a smaller set of voices, to pick and choose us to pick on. I find that particularly offensive.
A final question. You know, you're visiting us here on the July 4th recess. And by my calendar, you have a few weeks, and then there's the August recess, then you come back, and then September 30th, you guys are done.
We're right there. That's why I'm near frantic to get my work done in the next couple of weeks after we go back to the nation's capital, so I'll have time to do the pre-conference, to work through the things that Senator Stabenow and Cochran and I and Ranking Member Peterson on the House side can sort out. There are a few things, like ultimately what the savings numbers are in nutrition, that may require some input from the White House, the Speaker, and the Majority Floor Leader, simply because our numbers are too far apart. But we still have to have time on the floor. We still have to make the case. We can still get there. And bear in mind, too, when people are frustrated with the body, understand that I operate in a time where I've got a very conservative United States House. Well, that's a 3rd District of Oklahoma definition. Very liberal president, and a Senate where nobody in particular is in control. So if that's not challenging enough, remember half of the House of Representatives was not members in part of the membership when we voted on the 2008 bill. Half the 435 weren't there. So I have a lot of members who have not been through a Farm Bill debate before, have never focused on the issues before, have never really come to understand why it matters in parts of their district before. So I've got a great education process. So I've got a very divided political landscape. I've got a very green body as a whole on members. And all those things together mean I just have to work harder.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about the controversies surrounding farm subsidies, as well as a profile of Ag Committee Chair Frank Lucas, just head to our website at okhorizon.com and look under our Value Added section. Next time on Oklahoma Horizon, while the Supreme Court may have ruled in Oklahoma's favor in a long-standing water dispute with Texas, the debate over the state's water resources is still far from over.
They took the last 30,000 acre feet that they took really knocked this lake down tremendously and put it in grave danger of a total fish kill.
Water and the competition for it on Oklahoma Show Over the Heartland, Oklahoma Horizon. Well, looks like we are out of time. I'm Rob McClendon. Thanks for watching. See you back here next week.
Thank you for watching Oklahoma Horizon.